Hindu editorial, most of the terms, right? Most of the issues which they discuss, contemporary issues, right? So they use many times the term paradigm shift. What is the meaning of paradigm shift? You can let me start, otherwise, see, they will complain to you. It's a big issue. Audible? Okay, anyone let me know if it is audible. So the term paradigm shift indicates what? It is not just a shift in the significant, impactful, and the landmark. When you say decolonization, so from colonization to decolonization, that's a paradigm shift, you know. So when paradigm shifts, values, knowledge, culture, worldview. You understand what is a worldview? How many of you have studied GS actually? You're still in the process or you've studied GS? And anybody online, bhai, tell me. Why are you on this Maun Vrat? Let me know it is audible or not. See, they're not even responding. But tell. GS, how much GS you have studied? Okay, what portion? Quality, economy, okay, polity you studied, right? Only polity. Is it audible? Pehle ye batao, it is audible or not? So you have studied polity, right? Like we talked about Keshwar and Bharti case. Is it a paradigm shift? Yes, sir. Why it is a paradigm shift? Correct. But what is a paradigm shift? See, the way we started or the way we were viewing till then, right? The point of view towards judiciary and other organs of the state, that totally transformed after that. You understand? So the word paradigm indicates a concrete scientific development, right? Scientific does not mean technological, right? Scientific means something which is based on logic and understanding. So something which changes the point of view forever, right? It's like a change in entire direction. So you're moving east, right? And something happens, suddenly you move west. What has happened? Paradigm shifts. So changing perspective, changing base, the entire base from which you are viewing something, right? That entire base has been shifted. Now that's called. So likewise, for every subject, there would be a number of bases, right? Which would have shifted over a period of time. All these important bases, right? They were identified or they were, conveyed as the idea of paradigm. So paradigms indicate somewhere a dominant conceptual development in a particular phase. So when we say today, Modi, 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 what does it mean? It means nothing, right? What means something? You have to be politically very conscious. But students have to have a very strong sense of political common sense. Okay, audible? So when we are using the word Modi, right? Does it indicate some paradigm shift in Indian politics? Yes, it does. From 1990, or let's say 89 onwards, right? We have been having the coalition governments, mostly minority governments at the center. Suddenly one person comes, right? And this coalition type of politics or this minority type of government changes to a full majority, right? And then one single person and his personality dominates the political process. It's a paradigm shift, right? But yes, the decline will also come. That's also very obvious. So every paradigm or any paradigm indicates what? That in a particular phase, there was a dominance of a conceptual idea, right? It goes to the peak, then comes down. Then comes the next paradigm. Again, that will go to the peak, it will come down. And this is how the crest and trough, right? Sinusoidal development of any subject. That is the meaning of paradigm. So paradigm word was used in public administration, right? To mainly indicate that it has some similarity with the scientific developments, right? They wanted to give it a scientific nature, a status of a science. Any subject, if it becomes a science, it becomes a universal knowledge. Most of the social science cannot become a science. Can you predict when a person will commit suicide? No, you can, right? You can. That is why psychological studies are done. Why do we study psychology then? See, so psychology is what? It is the quantification or a quantitative analysis of the human behavior and human thinking. We want to convert that into some formula, into some magnitude, into some quantity. So every social science somewhere wants to what? It wants to predict the outcomes. And so is public administration. What will happen if there is a communal riot? You know what will happen? People will die, right? There will be conflict. There will be destruction of public property. There will be so many other things, right? Can you prevent communal riot? How will you prevent? You're a collector. You study ethics. Ethics is a very practical subject, right? It's not a theoretical subject that you have to mug up ethics. That is why people score 120, 130 and they say, oh, I've scored very well in ethics. That's not the score of ethics. In ethics, you should score 160, 170. That is why that paper was introduced. The entire debate in UPSC reform is going around that. The introduction of ethics paper was for practical understanding of students, right? Now what students are doing, they're mugging up, developing a template, a formula, going and writing it. That is not what the essence of ethics paper is. It is not a high school exam. They want people who are thinking people, right? Who have common sense understanding of the issues, right? Not just mugging up, okay, using means and analysis, using the principle of utilitarianism, deontology, teleology, mug up the definition, apply it anywhere. See, that is not the idea. See, so every social science, so if you have to prevent communal right, what will you do? Abhi, Sai, Vivek, Jyoti, anyone tell me, what will you do if you have to prevent the communal right? What will you do? How will you know? How will you anticipate there is going section 144? That you will apply once it is there. I'm talking about prevention. How can you anticipate that communities are planning for a riot? That is where an administrator comes. So you can implement laws when it is done. Okay, when it comes into action. Let's say a person is there who anticipates the problem. So what will you look for if you have to anticipate if there is going to be a riot, there is going to be a conflict, there is a festival coming? Fine. So can you have some parameters on the basis of which you can anticipate? Intelligence, correct, right? What parameters? Now see, there is the most important resource for a public servant is what? The experience. The past data. Muzaffarnagar, Kairana is a place in UP, right? Where we see the high number of exodus of certain communities, Hindu communities from that place, right? Muzaffarnagar is one of the, it is listed, right? Where? It is listed at the global level as one of the most riot-prone areas in the world. Muzaffarnagar, Meerut, UP. Right? How will you, if you are posted there as a collector, what will you do? Obviously, the best resource a public servant has is what? The past records. Right? They are called as the secondary data. Secondary data is people have already, your seniors have made files on that. Already government has kept record of this. Right? A lot of people might have done already some research on that. So you retrieve the past record. Based on that, what you do? You will make predictions. Right? Second resource you have is primary data. What is the primary data? Local IB or LIU. What is LIU? Have you heard of? Local Intelligence Unit. So you'll ask local police or LIU to gather data for you, intelligence. That's the current data, right? Then the past data and the current data will be matched. That is what a logical public servant will do. He will match the present data with the past data and see, okay, whether there is similarity or not. So let's say any subject we are studying ultimately aims at what? Making the knowledge predictable, right? Making the solutions, decisions predictable. And that is what public administration also wants to do. Because we said it is a practical subject. It wants not only to understand what is administration, describe what is administration, but it also wants to prescribe how administration should be done. Okay, this is called empirical normative relationship. Empirical normative relationship means certain things we can scientifically identify or describe. Certain things we can predict. So prediction is based on so many factors: anticipation, probability, data, and likewise. So today, most of the administrative decisions, right, they are being based on something called, or they are data-driven. Okay, that is called evidence-based decision making. Everybody is using technology, no? Evidence-based decision making. Government wants to make policy, it wants to simulate policy. You know what is a pilot project? That is a pilot project. Adarsh Gram Yojana, have you heard of that? Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana. Members of Parliament Model Village Development Scheme. That's called Adarsh Gram Yojana. Fine. Or Swamittu. Swamittu. It is the geo mapping or geo tagging of assets and properties at the rural level. Digitization of records of property and geo tagging of that. See, when you will enter the civil services, right, majority of the functions would be replaced from the humans to the technology. So you will not enter into the civil services, right, of 20 years back. So if you listen to all those stupid people who were there 20 years back, they're all irrelevant for today. Many coachings, acquire them. We have UPSC chairman. Okay. These are the people who have done administration 20, 30 years back. They don't have any relevance today. In fact, the entire administration is going through a paradigm shift because of the lateral entry. Right? Today, we don't want those just mugging and implementing things. No, we want people who can have common sense decisions. So they should be well read, no doubt, intelligent, but they should have a lot of understanding, human understanding. The earlier bureaucracy was purely procedure-based bureaucracy. Right? They did not understand or anticipate the human aspect. That was the biggest drawback. That is why they say that, okay, we used to follow norms, rules, code of conduct. Yes, that is what you were supposed to do. You did not have any anticipation of the human needs, the human sympathy, sensitivity. You did not have that empathy. You'll meet some previous years bureaucracy, how they will look rigid to you, right? We follow discipline. For what? For what? Discipline is your personal trait. Understand? Your character is important for society, not your discipline. Your integrity is important for society. No. Personal honesty, how does it matter to us? It doesn't matter to us. Your personal honesty is immaterial for us. We need public honesty. Manmohan Singh, honest Prime Minister. Why he could not restrict or stop the scam worth 1,76,000 crores? What is the utility of his personal character? We don't need that. See? So the entire orientation of study of today has shifted. We need people, right, who are publicly sensitive and conscious. For that, you don't need to mug up the entire constitution and polity and governance history. You don't need that. But yes, obviously you should have the ability to understand that. That's very important. So sensitivity, emotional intelligence, see, a lot of focus on emotional intelligence. And that was the reason why ethics paper was introduced. But coachings and obviously students' perspective that I should get some notes, crisp notes, some diagrams. Okay, how can I use it? No, that is not the idea. And even UPSC has started discouraging that. See, if you write some standard format and answer, your marks are reducing. Obviously, they want your understanding, right? How sensitive you are towards a particular issue. How do you think? There can be a standard format to answer, right? But what is your perception of that situation? That is also equally important. So paradigm is one of the, what you could say, efforts made by a particular social science, or the term paradigm indicates the effort by the scholars to somewhere give scientific character to a subject which is humanities. So any social sciences, when it is supposed to be given a scientific character, we use the term paradigm. Right? That is the idea. Can we proceed now? Any other doubt you have? Fine, you don't worry. See, once you are competent, you can write. Once you are competent, right? Where were we? Actually, we are not here. What's the problem with this? Fine. Where were we? I think there's some problem with this. Annotation. Okay. Can you just ask that girl to come in this once? Thank you. Jyoti? Okay, her name is Jyoti, just call. I think this is... Okay. Leave it, come. Just call it, no problem. No, come back. It's okay. I thought it was stuck. Fine, leave it. It's okay, it's done. Fine, so you have any doubt here till now, right? We are just discussing the syllabus, not studying it. Fine, so don't worry. Any term you don't understand, our purpose is that you understand the terms of the syllabus. Then understanding them will become easy, right? So if you work for competence and being what you can say, efficient, automatically you will understand the subject. If your purpose is merely just to finish the syllabus, then I do not guarantee you getting marks. If your purpose is to become competent, then you'll get marks. Nobody can stop you. There is no standard format of answer writing. But there is a level of understanding. If you have acquired that, you can write. Fine. So let's come to this part. We have yesterday talked about something called public choice. What was public choice? It is a criticism, right? It is a perspective of criticism against the traditional government and bureaucracy. Why? Okay. Why it is the criticism? You had your breakfast, right? So I can have my tea, right? Fine. I should not feel guilty about it. Thank you. So you have, let's say, a criticism of the traditional bureaucracy and government. Why do you want to criticize them? Because we want to know, right? Another dimension of understanding government. Till now, we have been assuming that government is good. I'm giving you a situation, right? You are standing at a bus stand 10 p.m. at night, right? There are two transport services, one private, one government, right? Which of these services are you most likely to choose? Private. Government. There can be differing views, right? But you'll see majority of the people will choose government. Why? No, plus safety, correct? Sense of safety. We don't know whether there is safety or not. Correct, Ankur, right? Sense of safety. That is called sense of security. So government gives you sense of security. Plus, you are quite sure that government bus will have to go on time, whether it is filled or not. The private bus will try to fill itself, then it will go. You understand? See, that's important. So government has a better sense of duty. Here, duty means commitment to the job than private sector. Private sector may be efficient, maybe more comfortable, right? Maybe more better service delivery, but they lack somewhere in the sense of commitment. And I'm not talking about commitment to the service, right? But commitment to the work which is given to them. So they have to follow the decorum and protocols. See? Whether they are able to deliver the service or not, that's immaterial. So if you're interpreting the role of government in society, right? You will always say government works for people. We have been saying since the first class, public interest. Who serves the public interest? Public administration. Who serves the public interest? Government, right? Have we ever anticipated that? No. If the government was so public interested, then in last 70 years, right, there would be no problem in this society, right? Why only in 2014 we got Ram Rajya, right? Till 2014 we were struggling for this Amrit Kal. Right? It's a criticism, right? Not a fact. So we assume that we are entering into some phase, right? Transformative phase in this society. Why 75 years we have to wait for that? That is the reason. If government was doing its work, right, the way we perceive, there would be no problem. There would have been no corruption. If every bureaucrat, whatever he says in the UPSC interview, if he follows that, there will be no corruption. There is a rule, right? Conduct of Business Rules, 1961. So there are two rules, right, followed by the Union government. Allocation of Business Rules, 1961. Conduct of Business Rules, 1961. Fine. Now these rules define what functions a minister has to perform, what functions the administration has to perform, how the functions will be divided amongst departments and ministries. So these rules are made by the cabinet secretary with or under the guardianship or in the name of the President of India. So we generally say president with the help of cabinet secretary makes these rules, right? Though it is actually cabinet secretary who is making the rule in the name of president. Fine. Now they make these rules. They define everything. In that rule, it is mentioned that a secretary can deny a minister any verbal order given by the minister. A secretary is not bound to follow the verbal order given by the minister. But you see, why corruption takes place? Because of that. Most of them follow the verbal orders of the minister. Right? The minister will phone, I am the PA of this minister calling, sir, you have to do this. Minister has asked you to go there. Why? Okay, day-to-day functions already defined in the law. A collector has to go in the morning. What he has to do, it is already defined. Why he doesn't need to be told every day what you have to do. See, there's a roster of functions. Right? There's a defined timetable, you can say, of functions he has to perform. Then there are contextual functions. That means day-to-day functions or something which is more important than others. So there are people to tell him, okay, sir, this is more important, do this first. So why does he have to follow the minister's order? See, verbal directions and instructions should be avoided, should be minimum. Only because of that politicization happens. But why they are willing to do it? Because they have their own interest. If he denies the minister, he knows tomorrow he'll be transferred. His promotion may be restricted. He might not get something called the plum posting. There's something called chicken neck. Have you heard of that? What is chicken neck? India with Acha. Rest of the India with Northeast, right? If you get a posting, there's a barrier. There's a toll, right, on that chicken neck. If you are a police wala, if you are an administrator, collector, if you are an RTO officer, if you are a revenue officer, if you get a posting there, all the trade, all the transport, all the cargo, all the tourism, see, majority of the goods, services, utilities, they move through that. How much per day? Per day is the income of a corrupt administrator officials who are appointed there. And mostly corrupt are appointed there. They are posted, sorry, there. How much in one day, 30 lakh rupees per day. Per day. And then you say India is poor? 30 lakh rupees per day. And that too, maybe I'm not underestimating. You add inflation to that and all those things. See? GST add kar lo usme. They will charge that also, GST on bribe. Can you imagine that? See? Now, what will people do to get posted there? Imagine. So monthly, right, crores of rupees are sent collectively by various departments, right, to the governments, to the ministers, to their akas, their lords, somewhere. And basically, they are not corrupt. See, they are charging a basic user fee. One truck is passed, they'll say, okay, 2,000. It doesn't matter to the truck wala, right? He might not have documents, right? He might not have followed certain rules and regulations. He'll pay 2,000, he's free. He's carrying goods worth 10 lakh, 5 lakh, right? So paying 2,000 is nothing for him. Comes back, does the same thing, right? Let's say he's carrying, right, 200 grams of marijuana. You know marijuana? Weed, grass, whatever, right? Or 1 kg of that. He brings it back. He pays 2,000 rupees, right? That's market worth of that is somewhere around 5 lakh rupees, 3 lakh rupees. He pays 2,000, saves it. They don't check him. See? How do you think people entered into Mumbai, the terrorists? And that too from a sea route. Yes, sea route, sea boundary is a porous boundary, no doubt, right? But Mumbai is a sensitive area. How can somebody be so casual about it, right? So there was a breach in the security and defense, internal security breach. Mumbai is not an international border, right? They would have entered first from the international water to the national waters and then to the port of Mumbai. See? So you can imagine that if governments were doing their task properly, there would not be certain consequences, right? These people started highlighting that. They said till now, the governments have always been viewed in a, right, Dinajpur, correct, Ankita. So these people or these governments and bureaucrats have always been viewed, right, as society serving, public interest serving systems. But what they highlighted a counter view. That is why public choice approach is called critical. It is a landmark development. There is one of the scholars of public choice approach, James Buchanan. He got Nobel Prize for this. Right? So you cannot simply say that it is just, it's not just a criticism, right? It gives you an alternative viewpoint to look into the drawbacks of the government system. Only when you highlight the drawbacks, right, then only you can reform them. Right. So public choice approach, now there are a lot of contributors to this idea. We have to study them, right? Some prominent ones, I'm just writing, you can use the name, write it. Like there's a very important scholar we'll study, Niskanen. William Niskanen, very important scholar. Then Anthony Downs. See why I'm writing it deliberately, so that when we read again, then it will be a second time you'll listen to these names, right? So you might remember them. Right? Anthony Downs Ostrom is another scholar, very popular. Kenneth Arrow. You don't have to remember all of them, but still, if you know, it is good. Kenneth Arrow, Duncan Black. And finally, we have James. He got the Nobel Prize. James Buchanan. Somewhere around 1983, I think he got Nobel Prize for this. Economics. Now, these are some major contributors to these ideas, right? And there are so many others, right? But all of them are not equally important. One more you can write, Patrick Dunleavy. He's a contemporary scholar. Patrick Dunleavy. Dunlevy. You can write it there in the booklet, that's better. If you have that booklet, that's best. Right? Now see, these are some major scholars and they became very influential. They were the ones who basically impacted something which comes later, right? So the contribution of these scholars led to emergence of a movement, right? A movement not only academically, but also socially. People started knowing about it. Scholars started studying it. People started interpreting it, see? Governments came to know about it because of the theory they developed. And people demanded the reforms and the changes in the government system. It led to a movement, right? That is called, see, NPM, and a movement emerged in European countries called Neo-Liberal Movement. This started 1980s. The Neo-Liberal Movement in European countries. We have talked about liberal. You know the concept, you studied polity? You studied polity? Anybody else who studied polity? You studied polity. Okay. Tell me, what is a liberal democracy?
Main focus on the people, on their rights.
So, I mean, how does it work? Neoliberal, anyone? Or let's say not neoliberal, sorry, liberal government, liberal democracy. You know about the idea of constitutionalism? You must have read. Whose books you read on the Indian legal system? In your syllabus, in your course, yeah.
On course, we have had legal process,
But,
which is one.
okay.
Like
M.V. Piley, you don't read?
Sorry?
M.V. Piley, have you heard his name?
No.
His constitutional debates are very popular. Fine, so, koi baat nahi. Constitutionalism, have you heard of this idea? What does it mean?
The implementation of ideal of constitution.
Correct, to an extent, right? But does it mean that if there is constitutionalism, there will be constitution? As per your statement, it means that there has to be a constitution, right? If there is constitutionalism. No, you're correct. There's no need. That means we don't need to have a document called constitution. And only then we'll have constitutionalism. No, constitutionalism comes before constitution. Right? And then it comes after constitution, both. So why do we create state? So that our rights are protected. That is the idea of a liberal democracy, where the belief is that individual rights are very important. Are you getting? Okay, that is why, see, conceptual clarity can help you write any answer. If you just want to know some pointers and terms, right, that will only restrict you to that particular question. If something comes beyond that, it is a problem. A political theory that limits the power of the government, Ankit, but this, Ankur, this is just half the idea. See, when correct, right? If we create a state, our primary purpose is what? To protect us, to give us freedoms, right? Now, see, we are creating a state. What is a state? If you say, I have created a family trust, what is that trust? Collective system, no? If you say, my entire family, we have made an account, right, in which all of us deposit some money monthly so that we can have a family trust, right? Trust fund. It is collective or not? Can you take your ATM and withdraw money from that? No. You will have to seek permission from others, no? See, what is the state? Collective system. Can you say that, okay, my freedom should be protected only? No. It has to protect the freedom of everyone. In that everyone, you are also included. Are you getting this idea? So when we talk about collective freedom, collective interest, right? Can individuals maximize their interest? No. They will have to bargain. That is what democracy is. Bargain. Shared interest plus self-interest. Both. Collective interest plus individual interest. Shared rule plus self-rule. Both are part of democracy. Which one will have primacy over the other? Fundamental rights or DPSP? See? Individual rights versus collective rights. Yeah, individual benefit versus collective benefit. Fundamental right versus DPSP. Golaknath case, kya hai? Minerva Mills case, right? You heard of these cases? 42nd Amendment, 1976, right? So it is obvious that why do we create state? We create a state so that it can protect us, right? Should provide our individual freedom. But state is what? A collective system. It does not work for everyone individually. It works for collective system. And that is where the idea comes of liberal political system. That state is being created. State has the authority, right? But how the state will exercise this authority? It will exercise this authority to protect our individual liberties. So our individual freedom can be protected by a collective system. So the primary function of this collective system state is what? To protect the individual rights. And by doing or through doing that, it should also protect the collective interest. But the primary idea is what? State is the best system to protect our individual rights. That's the idea. That's called liberal democracy. And that's where the idea of constitutionalism emerges. That is power arbitrary in nature? No. Can power be exercised discretionary in nature? No. So whether you have a constitution or you don't have a constitution, it doesn't matter. Right? If your political system is inspired by the idea of constitutionalism, you will automatically create a system, right, where arbitrariness is not there. So what is separation of power? Constitutionalism. What is rule of law? Constitutionalism. What is fundamental right? Constitutionalism. What is justice? Constitutionalism. See, you don't have to write it anywhere, no? If your political system is designed that way, right, it will function that way. But yes, writing a constitution somewhere makes it more concrete. That's the idea. So for constitutionalism to operate, there is no need of constitution. Understand? Because there can be a constitution, but no constitutionalism. And constitutionalism can exist without the constitution also. So see, every state, when we create, the state has to work primarily for people. That's the idea. Right? Now let's come back. So see, the neoliberal movement was a revival of that movement. Individual rights, individual freedom, individual liberty. Say they revived the idea. Now, in what context they wanted to revive the idea? They wanted to revive the idea that state or government's monopoly should reduce. Right? In the name of welfare, government cannot justify any expenditure. In the name of collective, government cannot undermine individual interest. Are you getting this idea? So neoliberal movement started as a reaction to the failure of the government. It was inspired by this theoretical idea. It came to be popularly known as Thatcherism in UK and Reaganism in US, inspired by the same idea. Why Reaganism? Because Ronald Reagan was the president. Why Thatcherism? Because Margaret Thatcher was the prime minister. In UK, New Zealand, Mulroney. So Mulronism, they started using these terms, right, to indicate that the government has changed its ideology or its core philosophy of working in the society. So from monopoly, from dominance, what the scholars, the social movements, they started questioning the government that why don't you change your entire approach of governing the society, transform it, right? And these were the leaders who took the lead in that. So a lot of aspects emerge, right? Expenditure cuts, budgetary cuts, reducing fiscal deficit. See, today we are doing that. FRBM Act in India, 2003, FRBM Act. Have you heard of that? Fiscal Responsibility Budgetary Management Act, right? Inspired by this. India may have been a little late in that, right? But still, these ideas still influence. So we believe, or see, the governments were supposed to now, right, follow the ideas which were promoted here. That how government can become efficient and at the same time it will become accountable both. That was the idea. How to ensure transparency and how to ensure efficiency. So they started promoting the ideas, a rollback of state. Government withdraw from these areas. What are the areas which government should withdraw? Should government make mobile phones? Why should government run airways or railways? Why should they do it? It can be very well done by the private sector. Why should government run transport? Why should government run metro? It should not do that. Government should make license, okay. And even why license? Why should it make license? Unnecessarily controlling the function. The bureaucracy has a tendency, right, to slow things. So there's a scholar, Waldo. Fine. He uses the term elephantology of administration in two senses. One, administration is so huge, elephant type, right? And the second, the slow, the speed. So there's another scholar who says, okay, the administration is like the tortoise, compares it to tortoise. So why they are doing it? They are doing it basically the idea that administration moves slow. It is too heavy to move fast. That was the idea. See, they started promoting this idea that you are involved in all the functions and that is why you're failing. You want to do everything, right? And that is why you're failing. So this nature of the government, right, which wanted to perform most of the functions in the society, mainly on the ground of justice, equality, equity. See, they say we are serving justice. We are working for the poor. What is the condition of the poor in this country? Not only poor, but the middle class, rich, everyone, same condition. You get out of the house, garbage. Sewers are choked, right? You don't get proper potable drinking water. Still, 40% and more people do not have access to clean drinking water still. Rajiv Gandhi National Drinking Water Mission. Pradhan Mantri now, it has been shifted to PM. So, and likewise, several schemes. क्यों नहीं पानी पहुंचा अभी तक से? Water is a basic necessity. Why it has not happened? So the logic that if government is overburdened, it cannot perform the functions properly. There are some core functions of the government, right, which it should perform, and the periphery function should be given to the private sector. So government has only certain responsibilities which it should perform, and rest it should delegate, it should give, outsource, privatize, right, or give it to the appropriate systems. Citizens, market, media, there are many functions which they can perform. Try to understand, why should government in India run Ministry of Information and Broadcasting? In 2007, in UK, they removed this ministry altogether. They dismantled the ministry because they felt it is the age of social media, it is the age of digital technology, right? It is the age of private media. Media should not be controlled by the government. Why do we have Ministry of Information and Broadcasting? Why do we have Prasar Bharati, All India Radio? Why we have a position called DG Doordarshan? Kyun hai? They are saying we have something called DD Kisan, right? We have so many clientele base. It has one of the highest clientele base, no doubt. The entire rural India is watching basically Doordarshan. Fine. But now in the age of social media, they have access to YouTube, they have access to a lot of applications thanks to 4G, 5G, and Ambani ji. So you have seen, they have access to all this. Why do they need to watch Doordarshan now? So okay, that's okay. Government has some responsibility, correct. But see, any information that is controlled by the government will not be considered to be fair information. You have several media houses, right? Let the information be verified by them. Now, government praising its own programs. What kind of transparency is that? Government praising its own minister, its own prime minister. Our prime minister declined the interview to any private media, right? In the first term of his prime ministership. In the second term, he gives a personal interview to Akshay Kumar, who has only one agenda, right? How or what is the the way the prime minister eats the mangoes, right? That was the question he asked. He was asking such questions which were already scripted. So it is not something good. See, if you want fairness and integrity, you should go out in the private media and answer the questions whatever they ask, right? That is what prime minister should do. So the logic is that many developed countries of the world, most of the democracies, what they did, they started creating more transparency, right? More citizen-centric, or more, you can say, private sector participation in governing. Governing means providing goods and services. Other aspect of governing, that is control, regulation, defense, security, was with the government. Now, so the idea was criticism of what we call as nanny state. What is a nanny state? A nanny is like the ayah, the maid, who performs all the household functions, right? So the term was used, nanny state, for the government. But this is a welfare state, which is a nanny state, which is performing most of the functions, and that is why it is failing. So how do we change it? We change it to lean state, right? Athletic state, small state, but not weak, right? Retreat of state, rollback of state, this state, that state, whatever state. We use a lot of metaphors, lot of adjectives for that we want to have this kind of government, not the existing kind of government. So this theory has huge impact later on. In fact, your NPM is also a consequence of this only, right? You've written the names, or I'm sorry, right? See, what? Now see, so it is obvious that there emerges a phase, right, in the study of government politics, and mostly I'm talking about Western countries, where the origin of public administration takes place, right? So our entire study somewhere will involve the study of America and Europe. So 1960s to 80s is a phase where a lot of criticism of the government starts, and obviously the scholars of administration and politics, they start searching some new dimensions, new theories, that if not government, then what? If not traditional administration, then what? We need some alternative. No, the society has to be governed. You cannot simply say, no, we don't have government, then what we'll have? We cannot have Walking Dead anarchy, right? You've seen Walking Dead, no? Not seen. So watch sometimes. Huh? This exam is not that boring that you have to just keep reading the books. You can acquire knowledge from a lot of sources. Okay. That may be the smart work you need, right? Let's say. So if government will not be there, there will be some anarchy, right? But somebody has to fill the vacuum. Who will do it? So it says once the government goes back, it retreats, right? Rollbacks. Then who will come? Then said market will come. Will market be only sufficient? No. Then it said, okay, civil society can come, people can come, media can come, community can come. They said, see, this space, this vacuum can be filled by many other actors, right? They can do their work. For example, you are living in a residential society, right? You form an association. What is it called? Resident Welfare Association. You form an association. Why do you form an association? It's like a small local government, right? In your society. That's what you're doing. You're trying to self-govern. You understand? Obviously, within the laws of the government. So if we start developing community, if we start promoting the awareness, education, right, understanding of people around us, if people start participating in certain small tasks, what will happen? The load of the government will reduce. If people are able to repair their own roads, local roads, if they contribute to that, see, the government's responsibility, I'm not saying it will totally be eliminated, right? But government's unnecessary interference in certain functions will reduce. If you have a mechanism to get your street light repaired, right, the government's unnecessary interference will reduce. But what? You wait for the government. One bulb has to be replaced, right? You wait for the government. So if the government, right, promotes the communities, resident welfare associations, such societies, right, and it collaborates with them and says, okay, fine, you are free, right, to impose some fee, collect some fund, make it transparent, spend it, and perform the functions that you want. You understand? This is what local governance is about. So it's not about just having one local government system. We can create the self-governing networks. These are called self-governing networks. So the idea was, or modern, lot of theory, you can say, emerged in this phase. And they started saying government's direct role must reduce. Government should focus more on facilitating, supporting, promoting, right? Let other actors do the task. So civil society and market, they became a very important actor when the government goes back. You know what is a civil society? Civil society group of citizens, right, who are willing to contribute to governance. Willingness is very important. They may not be capable, but they may be willing. See, in democracy, people are already willing, fine, but they are willing only to vote. After that, what is your role? Once you have chosen the government, right, do you ever interact with the government? No, you interact at certain levels, right, but you don't interact as collective citizens. Whatever promises they have made, you never ask them whether you have fulfilled or not. So obviously they take it casually. They know these people will never ask. So if you are, right, moving beyond this idea that I will not just vote, I will engage with the government. That is called engaging democracy. My role does not end at voting. My role starts after that. Once the government gets elected, then your role should start. So when you become that active or proactive, when you become conscious of public interest, when you feel that it is your interest, right, and you should collaborate with the government to perform that function, right, or you can at least influence the government to perform that function properly. See, so when you move beyond just being a voter, you understand, when you become an active participant as a group, as a community, right, for various purposes. For example, students forming an association, not necessarily a registered body, right? They come together simply and they try to raise a particular issue with the government, right? And obviously they can provide solution also, or they can collaborate with the government to solve that problem. They will be civil society. Women association, a group of women coming together, talking about certain rights which they have or certain needs which they have, women's security, whatever, civil society. Civil society need not be an organization, right? It is a loose association of like-minded people, of people who come together to fulfill some collective interest, right? And in the process, they collaborate with the government, they influence the government, right? Or somewhere they take up functions on their own. But they are not political groups. They are not fighting for power. They are fighting for collective interest. Civic functions, road, electricity, lighting, transport, whatever. When this civil society, right, when now it becomes an important force. For example, women association or women movement becomes very powerful. And then someday these women, the members of this women association or movement decide that, okay, let's register ourselves as a political party. Now they start losing the character of a civil society. They start becoming a political party. Now they will be called now as a political lobby, a power group now. Earlier they were a group, community group working for the collective interest, some functions. Now they are now converted into a system of organized political power, right? And they are looking for that power now because they want to contest elections now. See, Kejriwal and group from civil society to political party. Understand? India Against Corruption movement, Lokpal movement to Aam Aadmi Party. That's a transition. So that is also a drawback. Most of the civil society organizations aspire to be political party. This association, that association, right? Either you support one political party or another political party, or somewhere you want to align with a political party which is in power. That is what you want to do. That is also one of the reasons the defeat of the civil society movement in India. Unless you get associated with a political party or power, right, you cannot survive, you cannot grow. That's the problem. NGOs. So see, NGOs, media, association, they are all civil society. Political party is also civil society, right? But its nature is little different. Pressure groups, interest groups, these are all the systems which will emerge when the government's role will reduce. That's the idea. So this was the phase when the theories started supporting this idea. Fine. This was also the phase when we see the emergence of something called the good governance agenda, the coming of globalization, right? Obviously not accepting the concept of globalization from the ancient Chinese Silk Route. Don't accept that, right? You accept it as an idea, but when we say concrete form of globalization, so somewhere 1980s and 90s, we see the emergence of globalization. Globalization was triggered by the Western countries. Globalization was triggered by multinational institutions, right? See, this is one portion. A lot of questions come from here also, right? But they are very generalized questions. We have to make it more public administration type, means we need to use some theory and scholars and all this. But we should never lose the practical application. You write n number of scholars and their perspective, right? You will get half marks only. Unless you apply this to practical understanding. So globalization starts. How will globalization start? Who will start globalization? Somebody will.
Countries with excess capital in there.
Correct. But how will it start? I'm simply asking, right? That might be one reason for that. I'm talking about the process. How will it start? Now see.
They will start manufacturing in countries with cheap labor.
Correct. So already the countries which were developed, right? Will the term globalization apply to them? Doesn't seem to be logical. See? Obviously, the countries which were developed, they had high industrial base, they had high capital base. What are they looking for now? They have acquired a significant level of industrial development, GDP growth rate, good lifestyle, right? Now, what are they looking for? They're looking for markets, consumers, right? Labor, right? Resources, raw material, human resource, land, assets, they are looking for that. So how are they going to do it? Now see, this is the process which led to the emergence of a phenomenon called globalization. So globalization is a very powerful force, right? After a point of time, nobody can control it. But somebody would have initiated it, you understand? So the multilateral institution, right? Your World Bank, IMF. Now imagine 1987, when India had to devalue its currency. Why India had to devalue the currency? India had to now open its market. I'm taking an example of India, let's say. In fact, this is the time when your Southeast Asian market, they were called Tiger. Tiger economies. They started collapsing. Why? You see, poverty is so practical, it's a very interesting subject. If you actually start understanding it in that practical manner, after a point of time, you'll feel there's nothing to mug up. Free market. Why did it fail? On the export, correct. Imagine this way, that I manufacture goods, right? And I manufacture those goods which are needed by the entire world. Let's say, like what? Everybody needs a pen. Pen sabko chahiye? Chahiye na pen. Even if people don't study, they need pen, no? Students keep buying pen even if they don't study. See? They keep buying books even if they don't study. So let's say everybody needs a pen. Everybody needs shoes, chappals, socks, कुछ तो चाहिए basic चीजें. Watch, चलो. Fine. Television, music stereo, right? Something we need, see. There are certain things, right? Food crops to सबको चाहिए भाई, see. So there are certain things, right, which everybody needs. What they did, they started manufacturing those things and they started selling it to the entire world. And with the money they got, they started buying basic needs. So they enhanced the value of their economy, right? If you're manufacturing a watch, right? Watch may not just be a necessity, it may be a luxury also, right? It may be something which people may desire, which can be called as white good. What is a white good? Basically, electronic goods are called white goods, right? So white goods market increases when the consumption pattern changes. We want to carry iPod. Right? Why do we want to carry iPod? Everybody wants an iPhone. Why? Some are just using the stickers of iPhone, right? You see, that's correct. Desire. See? So the goods which we desire, or which are more about comfort, which are more about show off, which are more about status, glamour, right? We never evaluate the cost of that. We never bargain the price for that, because it seems to be valuable for us, right? See, it is something beyond necessity. So if the watch is manufactured at 10 rupees, but it is priced at 1,000 rupees, right? And it is projected as something unique, you'll buy it. See, what they did, they added value to their economy. By manufacturing products which were desired by the entire world, which were needed by the entire world, what happened? They set their prices. They earned a lot of profit, right? Which was not the margin with the basic goods. The primary sector, right, cannot create that much of value addition, right? If you want to sell a roti, however extraordinary that roti is, fine, there will be a normal price of that, right? A range of that, not beyond that. So they did that, they earned money, and from that they used to buy the basic essential goods. So they are selling TVs and buying sugar from somewhere. They said there is no value in manufacturing sugar, creating sugar, right? Somebody is selling it for 10 rupees. With selling a TV, I'm earning 1,000 rupees. I'll buy. I have a lot of money, right? I can buy these things. So basic items I will buy from the world, and the high-end items, right? The costly items I will sell to the world. They created very interesting economy, but they started failing. Why? Export-led economy started failing. Consumption patterns changed. A lot of competitors came into the market. Many of these developing countries started their own indigenous production. And the reason technically was US. US and China and certain other countries, right? They, in fact, many developed countries, they started dumping goods now. And that was a time when there was a craze. Ye imported hai, ye imported hai. Kahan se? US, in London, Germany, see, there was the craze. So they started collapsing, right? India sensed the problem. India realized the problem. And India had to now, because India was following a socialistic model, domination of government on economic activities, minimum privatization, right? So India sensed this. And obviously India went to the IMF, International Monetary Fund. IMF, they went, obviously for what? For supporting the imbalance of, what is it called? Balance of payment crisis. So IMF basically supports for BOP crisis. World Bank basically provides money for developmental activities, right? UNDP for certain kinds of activities. So India started approaching this IMF, World Bank, right? And they somewhere were now willing to give us loan. So by giving us loan, they put certain conditions. This is the beginning of globalization. Like I said, one of the conditions, yesterday also we discussed, one of the primary condition was that you have to open your market. You have to give access to your market, right, to us. To whom? The multinational corporations. So we'll invest, right? We'll bring technology, we'll create big infrastructure, right? We'll do all these things, but we will not give you knowledge. We'll bring technology with us, right? But we'll not transfer technology, you understand? Now India has the deal with many countries of the world for transfer of technology, you understand? Transfer of technology incurs huge cost. So there is something like bringing technology, right? And when they go, take away the technology, you understand? One is the permanent transfer of technology. That means you're transferring your knowledge to me. That is why we have to invest a lot in research and development. Fine. So see what they did. They brought capital, they brought skill, they brought management techniques, they brought administrative knowledge, they brought all that. right? Technology, everything, right? But they did not give it to us. They said, we will work with this, we will improve your economy. Simple. Why do you need to own this? Fine. So basically, we will be owners, right? You will be using it. Simple. So they brought it, globalization started, right? And this was the reason. This was the idea, right? Around which you'll find the emergence of something called good governance. This very criteria which the IMF laid, which the World Bank laid, conditions which it gave to us, right? These conditions, you can say, are referred to as the idea of good governance. So good governance emerged as a, what you can say, quid pro quo. Quid pro quo, you understand? Bargain, exchange, right? Len den. You know? That is why with pub at seaside classes are free, right? Right. So the bargain, the quid pro quo, okay, you or we will give you funds, we will give you expertise, right? In the bargain, you give us something. What is it? Market, consumers, access to resource, and likewise. So basically, the agenda of good governance, right, comes with what? The globalization, or you can say the agenda of good governance of World Bank basically fosters and promotes globalization. It was based on the very idea of globalization. So it triggered this process in many developing countries, right? We call this agenda as post-Washington consensus. Washington consensus was an idea where the developed countries started giving funds, conditional aid, something called tide aid to the developing societies. Right? Globally, it was called as, right, that is World Bank's or IMF's SRP program, Structural Readjustment Program. Okay, that what exactly came to be known as good governance agenda. So IMF and World Bank initiated the Structural Readjustment Program in developing countries. The money flowing from the developed countries through these institutions to developing countries. What do you mean by structural readjustment? What is structure of economy? What is the structure of economy? The primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector. The structure of economy. Now they are structural readjustment program. That means what? What they were trying to do? They were trying to change the structure of economy. Promoting industrialization, reducing or somewhere, reducing the role of the primary sector. So these countries or these funds were, financial funds were transferred, right? Most of the countries had to now somewhere follow the industrial path which was followed by the Western countries, right? Let's not get into entire. So see, this idea emerged. It was basically because of this, and now they developed a theory. Obviously, scholars started studying it. What is this good governance? What is this agenda? Right? What the developing countries are witnessing after this change? How they are evolving? How they are growing? Whether there is success, whether there is failure. So they started interpreting it. So two views emerged, right? There were scholars associated with them. A lot of contemporary scholars are there. But two views emerged. One, good governance as means, good governance as end. Two views emerged. That the agenda of the World Bank, right? Is it a means for some growth, for some end, or it is an end in itself? Right? For example, if I say, if you read this book, right, you will become wiser, you will become intelligent, conceptually you will understand things, right? Or you just read this book, that is enough. What does it mean? Read the book, end. Use the book for something else, means. So World Bank, right, came with this framework and it said, you follow the framework, everything will be good. See? So World Bank came up with the idea that whatever agenda we are talking about, that is an end. You don't have to do anything else. You just follow the framework, right? So this was World Bank's view. Many developing countries slowly understood, this is a process of what? This is somewhere a means of neo-colonization. We are somewhere being trapped now in the loan, interest, and all this process. So what they did, they said, no, we accept your idea, right? But it is not the end. We will use it as a means and we will find our own goals. Our growth, our model. Your input is only just one means, right? We'll just use whatever you said as a launch pad, right? Else we'll find our own methods. So many of the developing countries, right, said, like India, they said, no, this is just a means for us, right? We cannot say liberalizing the market is enough, using the technology enough. What do we need? We need to achieve something else. What is that? Equality. We need equity. We need decentralization of power. We need inclusion of people. We need to eliminate this. We need to eliminate that. See? So is expanding the market, is opening the market enough, and it will solve all the problems, right? Government said no. So what happens? 1990s saw the dominance of World Bank model. Around 2000 or 1998, when the concept of HDI comes, Human Development Index. Mehboobu'l Haq was the person, right, who designed it. So when 1998 the concept of HDI comes, the original agenda of good governance of the World Bank is discarded or at least criticized. And we start looking for our own model. We say, no, we accept that we need to have good governance, right? But it will be the good governance that we develop, we decide. That came to be known as the indigenous model of good governance or native model of good governance, right? The developing countries now themselves started defining as we need good governance, but that will be what we think. That is what we need, right? There will be difference in the model of good governance or the purpose and the goals of the good governance in different countries. So what World Bank was trying to do? Develop a universal framework. You understand? What developing countries discarded it, said every country will have its own method. We have our own requirements, right? And we'll try to pursue it in our own manner. See, have you understood this logic? You have a doubt? No. So see, where now these parameters, definitions, theories emerged on good governance, and even today we are following the idea, but today we are following more of our model of good governance, right? Not the World Bank's. Why? This logic understood? See, these terms, that's why we need to understand why these terms are being used. See, most of them are interconnected. See, if you understand one end properly, right, you will enter. You can understand the entire undercurrent of this entire unit. The entire paper basically is revolving around the similar idea. Market versus state. Public versus private. Market with state. Public with private. Bureaucracy, criticism of bureaucracy. Right? Bureaucracy, reform of bureaucracy. Entire paper is around this idea. So when people started criticizing this, so they started exploring new models. Okay, that new model was called anti-development. It was not against development. It was against Western model of development. You understood? See, that's when you read the syllabus, anti-development kya hai, right? Counter-development kya hai? So that's the basic idea. Just by understanding this, right, like I said, you can understand the entire paper that is there. There's nothing in the paper if you understand 2-3 units. Okay. Everything else is just an elaboration of that. So see, the idea of anti-development, discarding Western model, and this emerged, and many other theories developed on that. Fine, clear? Now let's move then. Fine. So good governance, NPM, right? NPM, we have just talked about how PCA or neoliberal movement led to something called new public management. Why? Can anybody think why? You have just correct. You see, you have just criticized the government. You have asked the government to withdraw from certain functions. You have criticized the bureaucracy, the traditional administration, right? When they are withdrawing, what do we need? We need some replacement. So when the governments were criticized, bureaucracy was criticized, scholars highlighted they are corrupt, they are inefficient, right? Then should we continue with that system? At least we need to reform it. No? See, this is a reform. New public management. See, the word public remains intact. It is talking about the new system of administration within the government, which replaces the bureaucracy, which replaces the traditional public administration. So how the traditional government administration, right, will reform itself, or what changes should be brought in the traditional administrative system so that it becomes more relevant in today's scenario. That is called new public management. So new is new, see, public is government, and management is what? The orientation of the market, orientation of the change scenario, see. So when government monopoly, public administration. When government monopoly reduces, public management, change in the terms. Changing the terms indicate change of orientation, change of characteristics, change of features. See? You're the same person, right? So one day let's say somebody is giving you instruction, right? When you are young, when you've just started something, people give a lot of instructions, right? You're preparing for UPSC, a lot of people would be giving you instructions every day, preaching you about UPSC, right? So you do get that feedback. It is tough. It will waste your time. Fine. You should do something. You should have plan B, C, D, E, F, G. Have plan till G. Then you should prepare for UPSC, right? People keep telling you. Now time comes when you qualify exam, right? Or you know, okay, that yes, it can be done. There's nothing, big deal about it. So once you understand the nitty and gritty of this process, now when they start giving you instructions again, or they start teaching you again, will you accept it? Why? You have become independent in that process. Fine. Are you getting me? A time comes when the society, right? Like for example, when you say traditional public administration, what it was doing? Controlling, regulating, providing security, providing services, right? But acting like what? A guardian. If I'm not, nobody is there. See? Where will you go if you don't come to the government? Who else will provide the services? See, they had this kind of attitude. The public administration or traditional administration has this kind of attitude, right? Sarkar. Understand this term? In Indian context, the colonial administration, the collector or the government officials were called as Sarkar, right? Mai Baap, you understand? They were like guardian. Mai Baap is the father, mother, treating them like guardian. Any other term? The people were Daridra, and the collector was called as Daridra Narayan. That is how it was perceived. Yes, these are the terms used by Philip Woodruff in his book. He's saying, see, this is how they perceived. Sarkar, right? Collector Sahab, Ye Sahab, Gora Sahab, Babu. Babu to is more colloquial term. It is more about, you can say, derogatory term, but you can say yes. So there's a book written by this person, Jim Corbett. Jim Corbett, Jim Corbett National Park. It is in Uttarakhand. Right. One of the most famous national parks in the world, right? So Jim Corbett was basically a hunter, a British hunter, very popular for hunting tigers. One day, something happens, he becomes a conservationist now. So one who was a profound hunter, he became a conservationist. And on his name, they established one of the biggest national parks, one of the most sought after national park in the world, not just in India, right? See, so Jim Corbett has written a book, Man-Eaters of 𝐃𝐨𝐽𝐽, right? 𝐃𝐶𝐽 is a region of Uttarakhand. So, Man-Eaters of 𝐃𝐶𝐽𝐽. In that book, he has mentioned one story, that he was residing in a forest guest house, within the jungle. And he was given one room, right? And he had obviously requested some official to provide him with the accommodation. Obviously, he was going on his hunting expedition. Now he says, suddenly one morning, a peon comes running to me, a cook comes running to me, and they say, sir, you'll have to leave for some time, right? You can come back after a few hours, but you have to leave the place right now. He said, what happened? See, I have asked the permission. He said, no, sir, you cannot stay right now. So he said, what has happened? He said, see, the collector Sahab is coming. See. Now he is referred in his book, right? The mighty collector was on his way to the guest house, and I could sense the fear amongst the officials and staff in the guest house. That was the dominance of the collector. The collector had made zamidars virtually their assistants. No, that was collector. But zamidar was zamidar. See, in Indian society, we generally use the word zamidar to indicate to some powerful landlord person, right? But his boss was also collector. So collector kuch to hoga powerful. Now that is how traditionally, see, we view the administration, right? So the world, what happens? Public administration, public bureaucracy, they indicate the traditional system, which had a particular way, a particular approach to doing things, which was highly procedural, law-based, technical, controlling, regulating system. So public administration or traditional PubAd or traditional public bureaucracy, the terms that we use, they indicate generally a negative notion of the government administration. When we have to make it more positive, and when we want to make it more, efficient, more transparent, when we talk about it's being more, open to changes and reforms, right? We use the word public management. You understand? Or public service. When we want to use the term to indicate that administration is to serve people and not to control them, not to administer them, not to exercise authority over them. It has to serve. It needs to perform its duty. We use the word public service. That is only why I use the word public servant, not public official. So when you say public administrator, it gives a sense of authority. When you say public official, sense of authority, control, regulation. But when you say public servant, more humble sense. Understand? Public management, more efficiency sense. The one who is working for delivering goods and services efficiently. More conscious of performance, good performance. Public management. That is why deliberately this word was used. New public management model came as a counter model to the traditional public administration or bureaucracy, you can understand. So this popular people, right? There were two popular people who wrote a book, Osborne and Gabler. Osborne and Gabler, right? Very famous for their book, Reinventing Government, right? Reinventing government, or the concept of entrepreneurial, the concept of entrepreneurial government. A government which thinks and acts like a business organization. A government which is acting more like a public sector system, a private sector system. So these were the scholars who come with the idea that we need to create an entrepreneurial government, a government which is conscious of the cost, profit, efficiency. So they use the word entrepreneurial, a business type administration, a business type government administration. The word entrepreneurial government, right? Or what you use the word reinventing government. So this was the entire movement, the book written by them, right? There was another person, Christopher Hood. Christopher Hood gave the term NPM. So there was this person, Christopher Hood. He was the person who used the term NPM, right? But they were the people who basically established the idea. They used the term entrepreneurial government. See, imagine government working like an enterprise. Government working for efficiency, cost, profit, productivity. Have you ever seen governments doing that way? No? So they brought this idea. See, today's government, today's administration has to have, right, the competitive spirit, right, or entrepreneurial spirit of the private sector. So they did not say that, okay, totally dismantle the system. They said the existing traditional system must change towards this, right? We must change the soul of the existing administration, make it more private sector type. So he said when your value system, your soul, your thinking, your understanding will change, right? From traditional government bureaucracy to modern private sector management, right? You will become more competitive. You will serve the people. You will treat citizens as customers. That was the idea, see? Citizens as customers. When you treat citizens as customers, right, you will value the services you are delivering. You will value their every money which they are spending. You will value the taxpayers' money. Recently in Canadian Parliament, right, one of the MPs raised a question against their Prime Minister who had been on vacation. He said the $80,000 vacation by the Prime Minister, right? Why to be accepted on the taxpayers' money? See, do we question this in India? We don't. We don't have that culture because we do not value, see, the practical education. We value theoretical education. A student doing PhD, knowing the formula and some useless knowledge which may not create anything in the world, but he's valued by the society, right? Why? Because obviously once he studies more and more, right, and he's obviously studying theoretical knowledge, right, obviously this person is more happy, right, being an academician. He's not happy or he's not capable of using this knowledge for transformation. So we value in India academic knowledge. We don't want this knowledge to transform the society. We don't want it. So should we not ask, how come these hoardings have been put up, right? You cannot clean a drain. You are blaming coachings. Majority of the people who made videos on these coaching commercial, coaching mafia, right? You come, how many hours, how much effort we put? They cannot even debate with us 1 hour. How much we have studied, right? We have come from brilliant academic careers. Right? Qualifying UPSC prelims is a small thing. Going to the interview is a small thing. Out of 10, 15, 20 lakh people, right? Few thousands reach there. That means you are discarding the entire system. And who are you? Some YouTuber, see, who may not be able to pronounce the UPSC properly, see. One was pronouncing UPPSC, see. And he was making a video, coaching mafia. You come and see, you understand, right? Not everybody is a mafia system. The word mafia with education only comes with those businessmen, corporates who started investing, right, in the early phase of globalization. Engineering college, medical college, this college, nursing college, law college. This is what they are, the mafias. The UPSC business is not that big. The IIT JEE, they are the mafias. You can compare, see? Can you compare? 5 lakh, 3 lakh appearances in the exam and 28 lakh appearances. JEE. IIT JEE, 28 lakh students giving that exam. 3 lakh, 4 lakh, 5 lakh giving this exam. Right? And that to market somewhere is around 1 lakh students, nothing. So you can always criticize the system, yes, but only when you have logical facts. You have knowledge to do that. Some journalist who is third-class student, right, just by being licking the boots of the politicians or his bosses, right, he will come there, right, and he will get into the PGs and hostels of old Rajendra Nagar. Oh, how students are living. This is the work of the government. Is this the work of the coaching institution? No. Yes, if you are allowing students, you should give clean, hygienic, healthy environment. Finish. And knowledge. That is our work. Ensure safety. Yes, definitely. Why not? That is why we follow a lot of precautions. That is why we don't expand. Obviously, not everyone is expanding in that way. The way there are people who want to teach 10,000 students. Let them teach. We don't want to teach. See? Everybody has come into this system with their own motives. Yes, money is a consideration. Definitely, this is a livelihood for us. It's my profession. If I don't value it, right, I will never be able to upgrade the knowledge. So when you say money is the criteria, no, it's not. If we get good students, right, we say it's okay, you're not capable, pay, study. Qualify, then I will take the fee from you. I had a student doctor, he's now Tehsildar, he's now going to be now Tehsildar now in MP. He qualified MP pieces, right? IS, obviously he gave mains, but he could not qualify. And that is when I was just starting to teach, 2012. Even I had no money, right? So she said, I cannot. I said, it's okay, don't pay. You study, but you promise that you'll follow what we are saying. So he gave mains, he could not qualify, but he gave Maharashtra pieces, he qualified. He was a doctor. He qualified the medical also. I think he shifted now from Tehsildar to deputy CMO or something. Right? And he gave the money once he qualified. So I told him, it may be 6 years, 7 years, I don't care. Right? Promise is a promise. That's a fair bargain, professionalism. I taught you, 7 years have passed by, it's okay, don't add inflation to that, you just pay what was the fee. And he did it on his own, I don't have to say, see. So it's not like that. You can create a market perception, that's not true. Same, if the government is going to commercialize, that does not mean government is going to be bad. If you commercialize, right, you become professional. If you are professional, you have certain commitments to fulfill. The government till now was based on what? The idea of welfare, justice, equality, equity, talking about all these good things, right? You've seen those videos where your motivators and educators bring emotional ideas and dialogues. How does it transform your life? Your mother is enough for that. Right? Our parents, our mothers, our guardians are enough for that. If we have to listen to the emotional ideas and motivation, we'll talk to them. So someone is creating the emotional narrative. Students are facing, so what is this? You talk about the problem, create a solution. The coaching is going on for the last 50 years. When did such things happen? It did not happen. Right? Thousands of students have been taught, hardly with one AC running. Right? I've seen, we have been there. We have also studied. Nothing happened. Why? Your excess corporate funds, excess corporate money, and then that greed. See? If you're getting 50 crores investment from someone, you have to pay it back. No? You can project yourself as a big system, it's okay. But you know that internally you are hollow. You have to pay that back. To do that, you have to reach out to customer base. You have to create new customer base. You'll go to the rural area like Kautilya and pick up one Chandragupta and say, "Arey, I'll make you Raja. Come with me." That is what you have to do. You have to look for new territories for expanding this business. 90% of the students, obviously, they will be manipulated in this process. There are a lot of students, see, every student has capability, right? But there are a lot of students who need first a basic polishing of the academic knowledge. Then they should enter into this process. Basic polishing. Suddenly you cannot say, I was 12th fail and now I'll become. How much process he had to follow, that person? Lakhs of 12th fail will appear than one. And that too, he was not fail actually. See? That's what I'm trying to do, narrative. See? Rickshaws, wala's son become. Why you are denying his merit? He can be from anywhere. But there may be difference of economic condition, there may be difference of some benefits, right? But his merit, his effort should not be discarded, right? See, the moment you say, okay, this is farmer's son who called, see, you're discarding his merit. The first thing you should highlight is the capability of the boy. Irrespective of the circumstances, he did that, right? First, reward that. Don't start glamorizing his context or background first. That is what they do. So this guy, I think, physics wala, he was a good teacher. Right? Even though he's not total engineer, but still he was teaching well. He teaches well. He's a good teacher. Conceptually, very good. But now he has left teaching, and what he's doing, he's preaching. Oh my boy, oh my this. One day he'll become Baiju. Yes. If you don't teach, that is my core competence. If I don't know that, I create any brand. How does it matter? I create any projection, 1,000 crores, this crore. How does it matter? A huge restaurant, right, with extraordinary amenities, right, with foreign waitresses, right, but useless food. How many years it will function? That's the idea. So you can fool people once, you can fool people twice, but not every time. Now these are certain systems, obviously they deny the importance of UPSC as not just an examination, right? It is a process of transforming the youth and their intellectual ability in this country. It becomes a process for that. And that is why government should create a system where everybody who qualifies prelims or qualifies mains or gives interview, right, he should be duly absorbed in some system. You are taking an inferior exam for bank PO, right? And you're appointing them as managers. You are taking a superior exam, UPSC, and people who qualify that or give interviews, right? You don't give them any jobs. How illogical is that? See? So this is highly illogical. That is a failure of the government. The growth of coachings or coaching will always be there, right? Parallel education systems will always be there because your traditional education systems are not even mediocre enough to compete with them. I've seen professors from Delhi University. I've met them. We created a lot of big systems, right? They used to come there teach. I've seen how they teach. An entire batch of engineers. I was teaching 600 students in the class. So I had a friend. He's quite popular for engineering services. IT Roorkee pass out. So he IS master. I think you might have known. It's a big name for engineering services, right? So he called me to teach certain portions of that. I went there. So I was teaching class 600-700 students in that class. So just before me, there was one teacher was called. He was from Delhi University. He had to teach some portion. He completed one lecture, or he completed half an hour, 45 minutes lecture. He took a break because they're tuned for that. No, 45 minutes break, 45. We are not tuned. We can teach for 7 hours. So he taught 45 minutes. He took a break, 15 minutes break, right? From 600, the strength went to 150. And then the owner, who was my friend, he came. What is this? Right, students. 500 students have left the class. How come? I said, see, I did not see the class, but yes, we can make sure. So he was teaching, right? But he was teaching himself. What he was teaching, he doesn't know. Competitive exam, right? It has a periphery. It has a methodology. You have to create, right, knowledge, as well as you have to create the content for the student. You have to fit that into how the examination thinks. It's not just about telling what is economics and telling about all the FDI and the process of FDI and the FDI policy of India. No, you also have to imagine that how the exam is going to ask you this, right? That is what competitive teaching is. That is why it is tough. See, so those people acquiring PhDs and degrees, they're not capable of teaching. Maheshwari is a very famous, his book is there in PubMed, right? Avasthian Maheshwari, have you heard of that? So Maheshwari started teaching. There was a time he was teaching, right? He failed. He started teaching PubMed. Imagine Maheshwari, whose books we have read. But he was teaching like a university teaching, right? This is a hardcore competition, right? We are working for getting every extra mark that we can. We are honing the skills of the student, not only just to understand, but to write, to think at the same time.
Thank you.